real tragedy here is that children are being introduced to material that is way beyond where they are in terms of their level of development, their level of growth. The second tragedy here is that sex is being trivialized, sex is being framed as purely recreational, and it's a complete abuse of sexuality. It also totally contradicts the Christian morality, because sex is used by a man and a woman to transmit life. It's not there for recreation. It's not there for 2 men and 2 women, or anybody else for that matter. Introducing these subjects to children takes away their innocence. Introducing them to teenagers actually promotes promiscuity. I saw that myself actually in America, where in the 70s, public school boards handed out condoms to high school people, thinking that somehow this is going to reduce unwed pregnancies. 5 years later, it had quadrupled. And so this whole notion of handing out these things to young people as if somehow or other they're going to be responsible immediately is the biggest lie of all time. Thirdly, what really bothers me is that where are the parents? Do they have any idea of what their children are being exposed to? Do they have any idea of what their children are hearing? Do they have any idea of the immoral presentation of sexuality to these boys and girls?
They choose not to listen.
They choose not to listen, and that is so sad, because the time will come when they will rue the fact that they didn't stand up. There's a behavioral process that applies to everyone, and that is what you fill your mind is what you think about. What you think about is what you develop feelings about, and what your feelings about is what you tend to do. So when you put this notion of sex and sexual, and it's not really even sexuality, it's more genitality than it is sexuality. When you put all that stuff into children's minds and teenagers' minds, that's going to be an incentive for them to experiment and to try this out. The other tragedy, I mean, it's totally insane, total lunacy to say that a boy can become a girl and a girl can become a boy. It's ironic that during the whole COVID scam, there was a big emphasis on follow the science, which has turned out to be junk science. Now the real science says your DNA tells you whether you're male or female, and nobody can change that. But that's been dismissed now because there's an ideological agenda. And ultimately the whole thrust as well is to undermine the family. And when you undermine the family, then society suffers, because as the family goes, so does society. Here we have these police officers who are sworn to uphold the peace. But I can tell you, officers, that this stuff that's being introduced in the schools is going to cause more problems for you, because there will be more sexual assaults, there will be more sexual promiscuity, there will be more mental illness as a result of this as well. And so therefore, you know, if you have young children, then you certainly should be out there as well, maybe not in your position as police, but in your position as parents. And so this whole thing that's being imposed by the government is actually undermining the family. It's undermining the children. It's immoral. It's contrary to the law of God. Somebody said to me there a couple of weeks ago, you can't fool Mother Nature. If you do, she's going to get her own back at you. This is an attempt to fool Mother Nature, to instruct young people in something that they're in no way equipped to even begin to deal with. The other thing that I think is extremely important as well is that the parent is the primary educator. And so sexual education should be the purview of the parent, not the state, not the Department of Education, and certainly not a government that is basically atheistic, anti-life, and anti-Christian. And so I think people need to wake up and listen before this whole thing causes a spiritual and a moral collapse in this younger generation, this future generation. And I hope that people are listening, and that people, when they see this trash, I'm hoping and praying that they will rebel, because it is trash, but it's destructive trash. You know, trash you can throw in the trash bin, but this kind of trash infects people's minds, children's minds. And as I said, it is an attempt supposedly framed within the context of health that's going to create all kinds of ill health. Physical as well as mental, as well as emotional and psychological. We don't see it now, but we will see it in 3, 4, 5 years down the line.
We're starting
Believe
to see
me.
it, Father.
I saw it myself, actually, in America, where they tried this atheistic governments and idiotic school boards who thought that this is how we're going to curb sexuality among young people, and instead they're contributing to it. Thank you for listening, and we need to pray hard, because this is godless. It's contrary to the law of God, the law of nature, and contrary to the Christian standard of morality. And that to me is child abuse. If you had a child, if you had a little girl, and somebody called her on the phone and tried to groom her, and you found out, you could call the police and they would arrest him. But these people are doing it legally through the schools, which are no longer educational institutions, they're institutions for indoctrination. And we see that, for example, we see it in communist countries where they use the schools to indoctrinate people into their own ideologies. The same thing is happening in this country. This is a sad country. There's a hole in the soul of Ireland, and only God can fill it. Only Christianity can fill it. No one else has nothing. So if parents don't take responsibility as the primary educators, they will be held accountable by God. But their children will be so much worse off, because they have not been taught in a way that should be taught, in a way that bolsters the family, unites the family, strengthens the family. Instead, they're waiting for these people from outside, who themselves are suffering from maladjustment, who themselves are suffering from a perverted notion of sexuality. These are the ones now who are supposedly coming in to instruct young people and teenagers. I mean, what a joke. What a joke. But it's a sad joke, because the results will be terrible. And that, I believe, is absolutely true. It will be terrible. Thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Father.
Father.
Obviously, the internet between where I live and where she lives is very difficult. So I decided to hand deliver this today. But I was told they would be here at 2. They're not here at 2. So I am hand delivering it, or putting it in. Oh, sorry.
Why are we not allowed in? Why are we not?
It's a public office.
She's in there, that's
Give
why.
him,
Thank you.
she's not in there. She's never in there.
Well, it's effectively saying that as President of Catholic Secondary School Parents Association, I have written to my constituency MP many times over the last 2.5 years. She has not addressed the issues. The major issue to begin with was that the major secondary school parents association was not involved in the consultations about the new SPHE curriculum. That instead there was a group that represented only 15% of secondary parents. Since then, she has had an inquiry made to check that my facts were right. Those facts were proved, and she has dismissed the people she paid €600,000 to over the last 3 years. So now she has decided that primary school non-parents will represent Catholic parents and all the other parents, but will not be representative of anybody. I wrote to her last on the 2nd of March, and the response came yesterday on the 18th of May. So that is why I've hand-delivered a letter saying, what you are doing is disgusting. Your representative of the primary sector, who appeared supposedly representing parents, is a clear advocate of the Transgender Equality Network of Ireland. And that has been known. No wonder that the response that came forward from the National Curriculum Council is so biased and so sexualized, because they have hand-chosen their advisors. And that's effectively what my letter said. But I came to speak to the minister, or to speak to her office. They have closed the office today.
And what's your name, sir?
My name is Alan Whelan, and I am president of the Catholic Secondary School Parents Association.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you.